What's up internet, Seti from CM Productions here, and in my first video ever, I'm going to discuss Chainsaw Man. With the anime set to release sometime in 2022, and the colored version of the manga recently having been released, I've decided to bite the bullet and reread and review one of my favorite series. And part 2 is set to start back this summer, so depending on how far we are by then, we might cover that as well. But yeah, I'll be rereading and reviewing some number of chapters of the Chainsaw Man manga at some hopefully consistent interval of time, and at some point I hope to do the anime as well. Before I get to the actual review, I do want to mention that at the end of this video, I'll be doing a spoiler section. I'm going to talk about the chapter with what I know is going to happen in the future. This is because I tend to realize things in rereads, and also there could be some foreshadowing or something along those lines that I really just didn't notice the first time around. I'll throw something up on the screen before to let you know, and maybe I'll even put a bookmark if I'm feeling nice. Or maybe it won't, and you'll think that I did, only to go check and be disappointed. Just imagine me laughing at you while you do that. It probably won't make you feel better, but it'll help me sleep at night. So the first page of this world-famous manga has our protagonist, Denji, talking about how he sold one of his eyes, kidneys, and one of his balls for a whopping 1.66 million yen. The conversion rate as of the making of this video is about 116 yen to $1. So that 1.66 mil is worth about $14,357.34, which sounds like a decent amount of money, though for a few fairly important internal organs, I don't know. He also mentions chopping wood that's not his own for about 60k yen per month. So that brings him to nearly $15,000 for what he'd make this month. That's actually a fairly decent amount as a monthly income. Obviously, selling internal organs like that isn't sustainable, but if he keeps that monthly rate, he's making 6 figures easy. If he's doing this though, Denji boy's probably a bit tight on money, right? Well, yeah, about that. See, the thing is, he's over $300,000 in the hole. So even if he could sustain this amount of monthly income, it would be years before he could fully pay off his debt. As a college student, I'm pretty familiar with debt myself, thanks to friends and everything I see around me. Fortunately, I kind of lucked out and avoided it myself, but even with that in mind, this is still an absurd amount of money to be in debt for. This is like buying house levels of debt. It's crazy. And it makes me curious as to what his father, who we later learn accumulated this debt in the first place, what did he do to get this debt? In the next few pages, we see Denji turn to his most trusty form of income, killing a giant monster tomato with his trusty chainsaw dog. We're introduced to the idea of devils, which are apparently a common occurrence, and for the general populace, not a good one. So Denji does a public good, and like all public servants, gets paid nearly nothing for doing so. And this is actually the first time we see a running theme in this manga, Denji being used/manipulated, but being okay with it, and even having a kind of positive outlook about it all because he doesn't know any better, and frankly, he has no idea that things could be any other way. After that, we get to the people that Denji is in debt to. They're a bunch of jerks, and they basically pay our boy to eat a cigarette as a joke. Which he does because he is in crippling debt. Relatable, right? But we also learn that the Yakuza is using him as a devil hunter because an official one would be worth more trouble than they're willing to have. Which then begs the question about official devil hunters. What are they? We end up seeing a couple of them at the end of this chapter, but we don't know a ton about them. And then we get to see Denji's sad living state. He and his chainsaw dog share a slice of bread and talk about Denji's dreams, girls, and jam on toast. The fact that his dreams are that simple and basic really says a lot about him and his life so far. And frankly, it really hits me in the feels. It's not exactly relatable to haven't had to sell organs for a piece of bread, and I don't think most people have either. But it's relatable in a sort of visceral way, where despite everything that's seemingly gone wrong in his life, all Denji wants is what any teenage boy would want, a girlfriend and some good food. Suddenly, we get a flashback. we see Denji at his father's grave, how he inherits his death, and how he and Pochita meet. I'm not going to go too much in depth about that particularly because I actually wanted to emphasize that in today's spoiler section, so we'll get back to that a little bit later. So we return to the current time, and oh no, Denji's dying. He's sick. Well, no time for that. He gets called for a demon hunting mission. Or not. See, the people that Denji was in debt to were being manipulated by a zombie devil. And since devils hate humans because devil hunters kill devils, the zombie hunter basically manipulated the Yakuza to bring Denji over and then tried to kill Denji. He ended up getting stabbed and cut up into a ton of different pieces. And that's how Chainsaw Man ended. It's a pretty sad story, but, I mean, sometimes things be like that. Lol, no, you thought. Pochita forms a contract with Denji and not only brings him back to life, but he also becomes his heart. The terms of this contract are very important though, and should be noted. Pochita wants Denji to show him his dreams in exchange for being his heart. Not only is this simultaneously heartwarming and heart-wrenching, later in this manga, we see how much that really means. So Denji is back alive and has a new dangly bit coming from his chest. And when he pulls it, he becomes a new man. He becomes the Chainsaw Man. And the transformation seems to cause him a ton of blood loss, but he then uses his new chainsaw powers to kill the zombie devil and all of his little zombie minions. Right as he does, though, he's about to pass out from the blood loss, and we see 3 new characters show up. And they appear to be official devil hunters. And one intriguing looking Wolfman gives Denji an offer. Die as a devil, or become her pet as a human. Overall, this is one of the best chapters I've read in a manga. It sets up our protagonist and the world really well. Denji is characterized as this down-on-his-luck dude who tries to stay positive. He's not exactly an optimist or even an idealist, and given his circumstances, that makes sense. However, what he is hopeful. And despite what he's facing, he doesn't give up. At no point was he thinking or talking about just giving up. And in that way, I kind of admire Denji. His entire world is screwed up in all kinds of ways. His whole life has been utterly destroyed by this debt inherited from his father. Yet he still wants to keep on living. He still has his hopes and dreams, which he keeps working towards. And he really captures the shonen energy of having lofty goals and never giving up, but in this incredibly gritty, realistic way that the author of this manga, Tatsuki Fujimoto, seems to be able to accomplish. That, we're moving on to today's spoiler section. I want to focus on the flashback at Denji's father's grave, especially since we don't know a ton about Denji's father, and don't learn much more until way later. 82 chapters later, in fact. But when we do, we find out that Denji killed his father. We don't exactly know why or much context, but given what we do know, he probably wasn't a very good father. He was a part of the Yakuza and clearly deeply in debt. But that's kind of what makes this flashback in the first chapter to Denji in the graveyard kind of interesting. His memory of killing his father is repressed, but facing that grave, Denji is almost certainly racked with guilt, and that expression on his face seems so much more painful and meaningful than I initially thought, and frankly, than I initially could have known, because we didn't know the context at the time. But this guilt is probably destroying him, and his entire world just gets flipped on its head when the other Yakuza members come and tell him, hey, you owe this massive amount of debt, and if you don't, we're gonna come and kill you. Everything is against him, and yet he keeps going. He sees a wounded devil dog and makes a contract with it. He wants to keep living. He certainly blames himself for his current situation. Yet the fact that he still manages to have this blasé attitude and strangely hopeful outlook, despite everything that's happened to him, And the fact that he can still keep moving forward says so much about his character. And really, it's inspiring, and it's one of the things I really truly love about Denji. I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know in the comments what part of this you liked, or if you want anything to change, let me know what you think should be different. This is a new project for me, and I'd love to see any feedback that you'll have. And have a great day. Chains, see you later.